Guys, they're telling you that inflation is down to 3%. But listen, if that's true, you got to ask yourself one main question. Why in the world does everything still feel so expensive? Let's get into these real numbers hitting your wallet because the headlines, they're not telling you the full story. And I want to show you the full picture in this video in plain language. In this video, I'm going to break down why 3% inflation is misleading and what's really happening behind the scenes with prices. Now, here's the truth that most people never hear. When they say that inflation is down to 3%, it does not mean that prices are going down. It simply means that prices are rising slower than before. But prices are not reversing, okay? Prices almost never go down. So remember this, guys. Inflation is cumulative. Inflation stacks on top of itself. So we have really lived through 4 straight years of price increases. So when you hear officials or somebody on the news, on TV or social media say that inflation has cooled down to 3%, all that really means is that prices are still going up. They're just going up at a slower pace, a slower climb. That's why the 3% number feels so disconnected from real life, because a 3% inflation rate sort of ignores everything that has already happened. And if something has already went up 25%, like prices have over the last few years, adding another 3% on top of that doesn't feel like relief, right? It feels more like more pressure. So the problem really isn't the 3% number, right? The problem is the foundation that the 3% is already sitting on top of. See, that 3% inflation is sitting on top of 25% increases in prices over the last few years. And that's what they never talk about, right? So here's the part almost nobody explains to most regular people. From the year 2020 to 2024, the United States saw roughly 23 to 28% cumulative inflation, depending on where you live, right? That is the real weight that's sitting underneath today's 3% inflation number, right? So when inflation comes down to 3%, it's 3% on top of higher food costs, on top of higher rents, higher insurance, higher services, higher utilities, higher taxes, higher fees, right? Cooling down, when the inflation cools down, it doesn't undo any of those previous increases. Cooling down doesn't rewind the last 4 years of price hikes. When they say the inflation is cooling down, it just means the speed of the increase has slowed down, because the real climb in prices is not over. It's never over, because prices never go down. And that's why your paycheck feels smaller today than it did 4 or 5 years ago. Or said in another way, that's why when you go to the grocery store today and you get a bag of groceries, it's $50. And 5 or 6 years ago, when you went to get that bag of groceries, it was $30 or $35, right? So even if you get a raise at your job, your raise has not outrun the mountain of increases that we've seen that have happened already in the last 4 or 5 years. Now, let me get into the numbers that hit real people, okay? Food has gone up 25 to 35% since the year 2019. Rents have gone up anywhere from 20 to 40%, depending on where you live, since 2019. Auto insurance is up 25% to 40% just in the last 2 years alone. Okay. Utilities are up somewhere around 10%. Property taxes have been rising all over the country, right? Listen, haircuts, childcare, repairs on your car, everything is up double digits. So when you hear this term or somebody say, oh, inflation is only at 3%, that's why your wheels start running in your head and say, hold up, my grocery bill didn't get the memo, right? What do you mean 3%? And that's because the inflation you feel is not the inflation they report to you, right? Hear me on this. The CPI number about inflation, that is just a technical measurement, guys. And guess what? Technical measurements don't always match reality, what's really happening out here with our money. Now, I'm not saying these numbers are fake, right? Because they give year over year numbers. I'm not saying they're fake. I'm saying it doesn't represent the way actual households spend their money, right? It's not the full picture. See, we feel real inflation, not the headline inflation. Now, here's something that is uncomfortable for a lot of people, but it's just the truth. And I got to say it right here. Our economy runs on confidence. Confidence is what fuels the machine. If people, everyday average Americans that are consumers, if people lose confidence, spending is going to go down, investing is going to drop, businesses are going to slow down, hiring freezes will take place, and the job market will suffer. We'll see more layoffs, and the whole system is going to crack if we lose confidence. So the media, social media, the government, who are oftentimes one and the same, they cannot talk about the economy the same way that you sit and talk about the economy at the table, eating lunch with your best friend. The government can't come out and do that. Now, not necessarily because they're trying to deceive you, but because the system, the economic system, depends on maintaining calm. Because if you're not calm, if all of us are not calm and we're up in an uproar and we're nervous and scared, guess what? We won't be dedicated consumers that will keep this machine running. So confidence, making us feel a certain way, is very, very important. If the vast majority of every American was taught to believe that, prices are out of control and everything's out of whack and the dollar is, if everybody was taught to believe that on a regular basis, confidence would collapse, right? It's already eroding, but it would literally collapse if all of a sudden the propaganda machine that doesn't scare us begins to scare us. It would collapse in a really fast way. And so when confidence in the economic system collapses, the system becomes more unstable. So the headlines stay relatively positive. The tone stays relatively optimistic, right? Relatively. But one thing you must know is this: the messaging is controlled, not because everything is perfect, but because confidence, consumer confidence, holds the whole machine together. Without it, everything goes down. So let's get clear on something. The reason the 3% inflation rate still hurts you is because your income didn't go up 23 to 28% like the cumulative inflation has gone up since the year 2020. That's really the reason why everything seems more expensive. It's because it is based on the cumulative effect of inflation over the last 4 or 5 years. Prices have compounded, but your income didn't compound. Now, that gap, that difference, that's the squeeze that you feel in your wallet, or when you go to pay your utility bill, or in your property taxes, or that's the squeeze that you feel when you go to the grocery store and all of a sudden you're buying what you think is $30 worth of groceries, but really it comes out to $50 in that bag of groceries, right? And it explains why the middle class in America is feeling a little wiped out right now. A lot of renters out there are feeling stuck, can't afford a home. Home buyers are feeling a little bit blocked, right? And up to their eyeballs in debt and payments and higher prices. People feel broke even with decent income nowadays. And savings rates are right now at decade lows. And it's not because everybody is being irresponsible with their money. It's because we don't really understand the math behind our wallets. We don't really see the connection between the 3% inflation rate that seems pretty low and pretty good and our reality in our wallets and in our budgets, right? So here's how to win in an economy where prices never go down. Let's talk solutions, because complaining about it won't fix it. Strategy is what fixes it. So I like to leave all these videos with giving you something that you can do to combat whatever we're talking about. So here's how smart people win in a high-priced world that everything is going up in. Now, one thing you got to do is you got to focus on cash flow, not necessarily your comfort level. Listen, a rising price economy, which we live in, always rewards the people that have margin. Now, what is margin? Margin is what gives you options. Margin is the cushion that's left after you pay all of your needs, your bills every single month. That's your household margin. The more margin you can have after all your expenses are paid, the better off you'll be, because you'll have some choices that you can make with that extra money. This means that you want to reduce your monthly expenses as much as possible. I know it's difficult for a lot of people, but even if it's temporarily, you need to reduce your monthly expenses. You have to adjust. You're not changing this system. The system is always going to have inflation. Prices are always going to go up. So guess what? You got to make some changes in your lifestyle. Now, your baseline lifestyle, that's your anchor. If you lower your expenses and increase that margin, then inflation won't hit you so hard, no matter what inflation is doing. Now, another thing you can do is avoid any debt at this time on anything that is not appreciating in value. If it's not going up in value, don't have any debt on it. And especially you want to avoid high interest debt at all costs. But do your best to get out of debt. Again, what will that do for you? It'll give you more choices. Because look, your margin is smaller when you have a bunch of debt. Don't take on any new debt on anything that's not going up in value. Now, another thing is this: build out your emergency fund. Yeah, you want to have your little initial $3,000 of emergency fund like we always talk about on this channel, but you need to have a full emergency fund. Build that thing all the way up. Uncertainty has sort of been the flavor of the day, right? For the last year or two or three, right? So make sure you have a safety net, a buffer, some extra money, right? Savings equals stability. And you got to have that safety net to feel better, but also to be prepared. And also, if you're an investor, which I hope you are, be sure you're investing consistently, even when it feels a little bit uncomfortable, right? This is how you sort of outrun or outpace rising prices over the long term. Look, you dollar cost average. You just keep putting in that $200 every 2 weeks. Keep putting in that $1,000 a month. Whatever you're investing, keep going there and do it for the long term, nice and steady. Now, another thing you can do is the obvious: increase your income, but do it strategically. Your best inflation hedge is your skills, is your value you bring to the marketplace where you can make more money in that marketplace. Now, if this means getting some additional skills to make more money, if it means starting your own business, whatever it could be, but you want to look at your income. Your best defense against inflation is a higher earning ceiling, making more money. Price stability may not return for years. So listen, you have to become more stable in what you bring in. And a solid way to do that is building more skills, building more value so you can build more income. Now, listen, guys, 3% inflation is a headline. Keep that in mind. It's not the full story. Your wallet lives in the real world of rent, of taxes, of groceries, of insurance, of utilities. And those categories of spending, they're all still rising, no matter what the headlines say. So my plea to you is don't feel discouraged. Don't feel defeated. Just be informed. The people who win in these types of economies are the people who understand it and adjust faster than other people. Now, look, if you want a clear, simple blueprint to take control of your money in this economy, my new book, Manage Your Way to Millions, walks you through step by step how to build real financial stability through managing your money. Get your copy over at manageyourwaytomillions.com. And if you want the full system that I teach, the 4 steps to maximize your money, you can go deeper with me on that at smartmoneybro.com. Your financial transformation, it starts right now. I hope I was able to explain why 3% inflation is a lie. It's not the full story. Remember, prices never go down. They just go up either slower or they go up faster, but they always go up. Look, I hope I was able to offer you some value with this information. If you got any value at all out of this quick video, do me a favor and share it with your network of people. Smash the like button and also drop a comment. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about these inflation numbers that we get? The best person who's going to take care of the old you is the young you. Guys, take good care of yourself and take care of other people. Until the next video, peace.